Greetings and welcome. My name is Aaron Craig. Welcome to another GameMaker Studio tutorial by Beyond Us Games. We are going to pick up where we left off in our advanced turn-based combat, and in this part we are going to set it so that multiple enemies and players actually spawn in when we enter a battle phase, and we will draw their names, health bars, and staminas for every single player. We're going to be using a lot of for loops and a lot of arrays. So let's go ahead and dive into it, and I'll explain each one as we use them. So we're going to, first off, going to our characters, and in each character, each player character that we have, we're going to create an array called myAnims, and it's going to be set up here. And this is going to be very useful for larger games. For what we're doing in this one specifically, we're going to use it, but I'm going to show you the way that if you had more animations for your characters for when you actually did a specific attack or defense, this would be a very powerful way to do it and to do it very quickly. So we're going to create an array called myAnims, and the way you create an array is just bracket and a number inside of it, usually starting at 0. And then you put an equal sign and say, what is it going to be? And then the array is going to hold all of these types that you put in it. So we're going to actually put in some sprites. So for Sarah specifically, I want to add in each of these sprites so we can later on say if they've chosen this character, set it to this animation specifically. And because we'll have multiple characters, we can't rely on specific like SPR or obj Sarah dot sprite index equals this when you make a move, because you won't know who you're selecting. The game will just have an array with the information, and from that you need to use generalized information as well, which is why arrays and for loops are extremely useful. So we're going to just say SPR Sarah walk right. I always start with right and then go up, left, down, and then any attack and defense animations, just because I like to start and have them all be the same. You can start whatever way you want. The only thing is that you want to make sure that all of your character animations use the same system, use the same order for their sprites. Otherwise, you're going to have issues when you try to use it later on. And I don't have very many animations, so it's pretty simple to get them all done. And then we're just going to copy this, and we're going to put it in the other objects, because we want each one to have their own specific animation set. And we can actually press Control F or come up to this magnifying glass, and we can find Sarah, and we can replace it. And because we're an object Vera, we're going to replace all, and then we are done. That's it. Very simple. Same thing in here. Copy, paste, Control F, find Sarah, and replace it with Kira. Okay, that was easy. Really nice feature to find and replace as well. Just use it sparingly, because sometimes you can replace things you don't mean to, and then you've got errors, and that's always not much fun. But the next thing we're going to do is set up the collision inside of the character parent. So in here, we're going to use a for loop to gather the information about the enemy that we just ran into. Because if you remember, our enemy parent sets up a my group here. So every single enemy in the battlefield that you run into will have a list of 3 enemies, the first one being itself, and the other 2 being random from the master list of enemies that we created. And we need to gather that information because each instance is going to have a unique list. So we're going to use a for loop, and we are going to say I equals 0. I is less than array length 1D of enemy id dot my group. And I will explain this in just a second once I actually finish it, because I found that explaining for loops is much simpler once I've actually already written it and told it what to do. So inside of our system, we actually have our battle controller, and we need to set this array, this enemy party, and we're going to set that up right now. And enemy party I equals enemy id dot my group I. So a for loop by its name, is going to do something for a certain number of times. It's going to loop through a section of code, this right here, and it's going to do it a certain number of times that you say. So the way it works is we set a number, a variable, set it to whatever number you want, traditionally 0, depending on where you want to start. We're going to set ours to 0, and we're going to say while I, which is 0, is less than the enemy id.myGroup. And we're using a function here that returns the length of the array. Now the length of the array is how many entries there are in it, like this. So right here there's 1, 2, 3, and in my group there are also 1, 2, 3 of them. So it's going to return the number 3 even though we start at 0, which is why we actually want to say I is less than 3. Because the way it's going to work is it's going to say set I to 0, got it. Then it's going to say, is I less than 3? Well, yes, it is. So then it's going to run this code here. It's going to set our enemy party equal to enemy id.myGroup. So it's going to pull the first enemy out, put it into the global variable. Then it's going to come up here and say ++ I, which is basically a fancy way of saying increment I by 1. So if it's at 0, move it to 1. Then check this again. Is this still true? As long as this is still true, it's going to do this again, but now I equals 1 instead of 0, so it actually changes what it is setting. And this is extremely powerful because we're actually going to use for loops quite a bit in this tutorial specifically, and I'll show you how you can use this changing number to set up different things in your game using a loop, but still making it different. So then it goes through again and again, and it gathers the entire enemy group because we say, what's the length of it? Do it for that long, and set up enemy party. And that's all we need to do right here, because then we're going to actually have our enemy party set up. Next thing we need to do is open up our battle controller, which I've already got open. And we're going to use this alarm 0, and instead of spawning just an enemy, we're actually going to be spawning players and enemies here, because now we have multiples. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. So we're going to use a for loop here to set up all of the players. And what we're going to do is that we're going to just set I equal to 1 here, and I'll explain that in just a second. And we're going to again use this function because what we want to do is dynamically change this anytime later. So if we set the player party to 2 or to 5, this function is always going to get the correct number, so we don't have to go in and hard change any values. And the same thing is on the enemy party. Using this function, it doesn't matter how many there are, it's going to know, so we don't have to worry about it. It's going to dynamically fix itself on the fly depending on our array size, our array length. So for the players specifically, you remember that we've already got object Sarah. We already have Sarah running around the map, and she is walking around. She's actually the one going to run into the enemies. So we don't want to spawn her again because we are moving her over. So we are going to start at 1 because inside of our array for player party, 1 is going to be Vera, which isn't in yet. So we're going to create that. 200, so the X position and the Y position. And in the Y position, we actually want to set them up on the left side of the screen, but we don't want them to be on top of each other. And this is where our for loop shows its power in that you have a changing variable. So we're going to say 200 plus I times 200. Now, when I equals 1, this is going to be plus 200. When I is 2, this is going to be 400, allowing them to be spawned in at different Y locations with just a for loop without having to change anything or having to set up every single spawn location. Makes it very, very powerful. And we're going to spawn in player party I, which will start with Vera and then go to Kira, and then it will be done. And we want to set each one of these to a specific stance and set their settings, because if we just spawn them in, then they're going to be running through whatever animation or whatever sprite they're on. So we need to go to player party I.image speed equals 0. Player party I.image index equals 0. And then we're going to use that array that we set up for their sprite index, and we're going to say it equals player party I.myAnims4. So if we wanted to change sprites, or if they were using a different weapon, this is a place where you could actually come in and say, well, I want this one to use this one, a different sprite, a different animation for this one specifically, and you would know exactly where it is. So it's very useful and very powerful. Then we're going to create one more for loop, and we're going to still use I, which is fine because this for loop is only going to function inside of this code. So I will start at 1 and go to 2 basically, and then over here it's going to reinitialize or reset I, so we can use it again without any problems. And we're going to again say array length 1D, enemy party, plus I, and all we need to do here is set up enemy party I equals instance create 1200 150, and we want to vary the Y on these guys as well, so we're going to say I times 200 and enemy party I, and that's all we need for that. So we can go ahead and press play here, and now when we run into an enemy, we should spawn all of our party and all of their party onto the battlefield, if everything was written correctly. Let's find out. Okay, looking good. We got a bunny, spider, and a ninja. Okay, it looks like it worked. We've got 3 characters and we've got 3 enemies. And we still have our menu down here that we can attack from, but you'll see that even pressing I can't go down because we haven't altered the menu selection of this. The only thing we've done is actually spawned them in. So the next tutorial that we're going to do is set up the menu, and that is fairly advanced, and it uses a lot of for loops and uses the arrays quite extensively. So we're going to go ahead and do one more thing before we end here, is we are going to set up the health and the name and the stamina bar for each person, for each character on here, using for loops once again, because like I said, for loops are extremely powerful. So we're going to go into the draw event, and we can actually come over here to the action bar, and we can delete this entirely. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete, because that uses obj Sarah specifically, and we don't want to reference specific objects anymore at all, because we're going to have multiples of everything. And if you reference specific objects, it just creates problems because you never really know when you are selecting that. So we're going to go into health bar and names, and we're actually going to delete all of this. And we're going to start with so health and stamina for player party. So we're going to use a for loop for I equals 0. I is less than array length 1D player party plus I, and this we're going to set up the health, stamina, and we're going to draw their name. So the first thing we're going to do is draw their names. We're going to draw text player party I.x minus 30, and I have set up these coordinates specifically for what I think looks good and kind of fits onto the battlefield map. You can play around with these coordinates if you want and change them around. For what I'm doing, if you copy these exactly, then they will fit fairly well for what you for the way it should look. And we're going to use player party I.firstName to gather the intel that we've already set up on each object. So that's the name. That's pretty simple. The next thing we're going to do is draw a health bar, which is going to be the actual health of the players. And now this is going to, let me increase this size. Hopefully that hasn't been a problem. We're going to set up the health, but we're going to use the player party I a lot. So it's going to get kind of long, so try to just follow along here, and I'll make this a little bit larger. I'll go ahead and full screen this. So here we go. Player party I.x minus 20. So I'm just going to set up the coordinates here, because I've already played around with these a lot and know exactly where they should be going. .x plus 20, and player party I.y minus 60. And when you're using a function like this, it's okay to actually press enter, and then you can continue the function, because this one, as you can look down here, just has so many variables that it needs put into it. So I'm going to put it on multiple lines, making it a little bit easier. And I'm going to use parentheses here because we're actually going to be doing the amount. And inside of the amount, we want to be doing a little bit of math. So I'm going to put it in parentheses to make sure it works properly. So we're going to do player party I dot current health divided by player party. Capitalization is very important here. Dot max health. And we're going to multiply this by 100. We're going to set the colors, and we're going to say 0, 1, 1 for direction, show back, and show border. You can play around with those. You can change the way it is and the direction and the way it fades from left to right or up and down. I'm just going to keep it simple for what we've already got. Makes it nice and easy. And then we're going to do another health bar for their stamina, because you can use a health bar function for anything that you can just put a value in that grows and that gets less, and that's going to change over time, because multiplying it by 100 here puts it at a percentage, and then it can just be signified by a health bar function really easily. So we're going to play player party I dot x minus 25, and these are going to be in a slightly different spot because we don't want it to overlap anything else. Plus 60, x plus 15, player party I dot y plus 70, and again coming down, putting it on 2 lines. And we're going to do current energy divided by max energy. We're going to multiply that by 100 to put it at a percent. And we're going to change the colors so it looks a little bit different for energy. And 0, 1, 1 again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to try playing it and making sure that we don't have any issues so far. Because what I'm going to do is actually copy what we just did and paste it and do a change to enemy party. So I want this one to be working properly first. And to me, it looks like it is. So now I have a health bar and a stamina bar for every single character, and their names are written correctly as well. And that bunny does a lot of damage. So I can still check, the stamina goes down. Okay, everything is working great. The enemies don't have any because we haven't set them up yet. So we'll go ahead and do that next. So I'm going to copy and paste, which you always want to be careful of. That's why I checked that everything was working first. And what we can do is actually do Control F as well, and we can do player, and we can find it. And what we can actually do is start at a specific location. So we can go, see, this is now gray. So we've got that one selected, and we can go replace with enemy, and we can click next, and it's replacing all of them with enemy. So now it's going to be enemy party. So we can just go all the way until the end. Probably don't want to press replace all because it will also change the ones up there, which we don't want. And this was the only one that didn't get changed, so we'll just change that. So now all of those are for the enemy party, which is great. A few things we have to change. First thing is the coordinates, or is the first name here, because the enemies don't have a first name. They could, but they only have a name right now. And then we want to come in, and I want to change well, actually, I don't think I need to change much else of anything. Copying and pasting that may just be everything we need to do. Let's go ahead and run it again and see if all of the enemies now have names, health bars, and stamina bars. Because that may be everything we need to do. Yeah, looks like it. Which is fantastic. Now they all have it. And these are even recovering stamina. And I think they might even attack because each enemy, has their own function to attack. And right now they're all attacking Sarah because we haven't told them that there are more enemies for them to choose from, more players to choose from to attack. So that is great. If you guys have any questions, comments, please put them in the comment section below. I get back to everyone. I reply to every single thing that I can. If you have any suggestions for the next tutorial that you want to see, please let me know. I'm always looking for ideas. And as always, have fun making great games, and I will talk to you later.